Hi, welcome to Morning Startup. This morning we're talking to Sam Birmingham, a man who is a real linchpin in the Perth startup community, has a wide variety of experiences, and we're about to listen to him. Hope you enjoy.
I will give you a quick kind of spiel about my story and stuff, and then I want to talk about 4 different things. There's the first one already. And then kind of how that all ties together, the thing that I think is probably most important to everyone in this room. Weird path, technically a law economics graduate at uni, which is incredibly boring and dry. Through the course of uni, did a bunch of little business bits and pieces to pay the way. Didn't enjoy study that much, so I was kind of experimenting with things on the side, running a DJ business and whatever else. Left uni, private investment for 3 years, working for some really successful, well, mainly property guys, but they call themselves accidental entrepreneurs, and learned a lot from them about, like, they were from accounting backgrounds, which is kind of dry and boring like me as well, but just had a really good sense for opportunities and taking risks, and I learned a lot from them on the financial side of things. They were heavily involved in pubs, so I owned a share in a pub for a while, managed a bunch of pubs for them, which was a really cool experience. Pubs are an awesome business to learn about cash flow. It's a product everyone understands, which is really easy. But just to work out how a business kind of tips, it's really, really good platform for that, because you can either make a heap of money or lose a heap of money really, really quickly. From there, I decided to scratch my own entrepreneurial itch, built what I hoped would be the next Facebook, as everyone does, because they're idiots. So my thesis, I guess, was, or my focus was young professionals. It's what I was, all my friends were that as well. I felt like we were really underserviced. I thought Facebook was great at conversation and LinkedIn was great at professionalism, but they were not merging that together, and I thought I could be the next big thing, which is just fucking dumb. So I did that for a couple of years, learned a huge amount of lessons, came out of it bruised and battered and bloodied. At the end of all that, so that was kind of, a couple of years, went into my shell for a little while, and then started kind of thinking, well, hey, there's other people like me out there who want to do entrepreneurial stuff, but I didn't ever get to meet any of them because you're so busy doing your own thing. You're like, computer screens there every day working around the clock. And at that stage, we didn't have Space Cubed and stuff like that. So it felt like a really isolated journey, and I wanted to share it with some people. So set up a thing called The Hive, which was just a once a month meetup. Was really, really cool. And that was probably a really, completely unbeknown to me at the time, but that was probably a bit of a turning point in many ways, because that's how I met people like Brody and Marcus Tan and all these great people in the ecosystem from back then, just getting together once a month for a drink and having a successful entrepreneur from whatever background come and speak to us and take questions and stuff was really, really useful. From there I've done, startup weekends and other stuff like that, which is really, really cool. That probably excites me more than anything now. Really, really good fun. Let's jump onto the boring stuff now and talk about, a lot of these lessons are things I've either done really badly and wish I'd done better, or think I kind of do well and would like to share some of that. But the first thing I want to emphasize to everyone is focus. Like, you're all here to build something, hopefully, or even if it's your day job or whatever. I think we think we're focused, but until you actually get focused, you have no idea how unfocused you are. We've got distractions everywhere in our lives. It's ridiculous. And we think we're really productive, but until you're working on your own thing for X hours a day and busting your ass, you don't realise how much you can get done until then. So I'll just encourage everyone to always challenge themselves around that. Oh, nice. A few different elements of focus. One is kind of what you're trying to build and who you're trying to reach. This is a bastardised slide from the Pollenizer guys. I had a really, my most illuminating day ever was going to Sydney to pitch Pollenizer 2 or 3 years ago. And I thought, I'm a champ, I've already raised some money, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to be wicked. Had all the pitch and everything sorted, and I just got absolutely schooled for a whole day. And so one of the things they talked about was, what's your market? And when you're naive and starting up, you think I want to have like the biggest market possible, and if I can just get X% of that, then I'm going to be awesome. But they said, so in terms of kind of depth of market here and size of market over there, I was probably trying to target this area here, which you're thinking, hey, like young professionals, awesome. There's 1.6 million of them in Australia, and then I can go global, and there's going to be squillions. But the reality is, if you're targeting that market, you get so shallow on it that what's the point? Like, it's really hard to reach each of these customers down there. So the guys then encouraged me, and I wish I'd done it from day one, focus on this part of your market. That's where you need to focus on from who you're trying to reach, because those are the people who you know super well, who are logically going to be your first customers, the ones you can pick up the phone and talk to straight away. It's not as sexy and exciting to target a really narrow sliver, and most people don't listen when that's the advice that's given to them, but it's right, then you should listen.
Who was that for you, Sam?
Beg pardon?
Who was that for you if you were targeting young professionals?
I use the pollinizer example. I was with these guys and I told them I'm targeting 1.6 million young professionals in Australia, blah, blah, blah. Here's all the demographics I know off by heart. They said, okay, go narrower. I was like, okay, well, young professionals in WA, go narrower. Young professionals in Perth, go narrower. UWA graduates, because that's where I studied, go narrower. I'm like, fucking kidding? I can't make any money out of that. Like, go narrower. Law graduates. Okay, yep, you're getting close, go narrower. And they said to me, if you can show us that you've got traction amongst final year graduates in law school, of which there were 100, that's still too big for us, but we'll say sweet. Because once you've got that depth, it's really easy to scale it across the accounting faculty next door, and then engineering and all the other ones, and then to the next campus and so on. So is that a decent example of that? Yeah, nowhere near as sexy, but had I done that from the start, maybe I either would have realised I was trying to bite off more than I could chew, or I would have built something more scalable. Another element of focus is we're all excited about where we want to get to, which is the big dot up there, and you do have to never lose sight of that, but the reality is you're all down here. Like, this is where everyone is, and you're never going to get to there unless you can do each of these little steps along the way. It's really easy and sexy to fall in love with the top right corner and where you want to get to, but unless you can do this, and it's going to be really slow to get to there, and really slow to get to there, unless you can focus on each of these first, always keep that in the back of your mind, but unless you can focus on each of these, good luck to you if you think you're going to jump from there to there. Maybe 1 in a million will, and that's awesome, but if I was a betting man, I'd say you probably won't. Next is a little, oh no, didn't quite render okay. But so this is a little, I've grabbed a bunch of stuff out of Twitter here. This is a guy who's really cool, founder of Box, so kind of a Dropbox equivalent for enterprisey stuff. But so simplification isn't about limiting what you do, it's about limiting what the customer sees. I think that's a really good thing to think about in terms of what does my product look like. It's kind of going down the line of, hey, if we can take features out and customers still don't notice the difference, then we're starting to get closer to exactly what the product is we should give them. And the next slide is from an even more awesome Twitter person, Fake Grimlock. Best way to accomplish nothing is to do too many somethings. I am the guiltiest of anyone of that, and I suspect many of us are. Like, we run around from meetups in the morning to work and then to something else after work and banging out emails late at night, trying to do all these different things. If you want to achieve something really huge, find what you're passionate about, focus like hell on it, and reality is you're going to have to cut some other stuff. But if you're focusing on the thing you're passionate about, then that's probably a sacrifice you should be willing to make. And that, I think, is my section on focus. Next up, questions. Voltaire, not a big fan of Twitter, but we got one off the internet anyway. That's quite funny.
I had a little chuckle.
I heard you chuckle, that's good. Trying to get a bit of...
It's too early, man.
Preaching to the choir there, goddammit. Questions. So, obviously inviting questions from everyone today, and I'm going to throw some questions back at you. We're going to flip question time around today. But for me, that's crucial. Like, when you're focusing on something and you need to be absolutely steadfast on that big vision thing, and it's really hard when you're entrepreneurial because you're so used to telling a story, and a story is based on kind of facts or theories and just talking out at someone rather than asking questions and listening to what comes in. And I think that's really, really crucial to kind of flip your mindset from constantly selling a story to shit, I've just got to listen to a heap of people and work out what they actually want, and I've got to be damn good at asking questions, and I have to keep an open mind to their answer being potentially not what I expected to hear. And I think, again, I'll like tire myself on that. I'm really bad at that. When you believe in something so passionately, like I was focused on young professionals and whatever, and I was adamant that the Facebooks of the world weren't doing it right and nonsense like that, you get so focused on that element of things that you can get the blinkers on. And how you balance up the kind of intense focus with keeping an open mind is really, really challenging. And I think a lot of it just comes down to asking really, really good questions and being willing to listen to the answers, which is probably even harder. I'm just going to leave that up there for you to read for a second. Jason Fried's a really cool guy from 37 Signals, very good at simple and doing things right. Questions and places in your mind where answers fit. If you haven't asked the question, the answer has nowhere to go. Hits your mind and bounces right off. You have to ask the question, you have to want to know in order to open up the space for the answer to fit. I think that's pretty cool. Next little one. Okay, this hasn't quite come up either. The top is from Dave McClure, who's a really, really, really good dude behind 500 startups. Swears lots, carries on like a pork chop, but has a really good approach to doing things. That summary of a startup is kind of not what anyone in this room probably thinks it is. Like, you'll think you know what we're doing, but you're actually kind of looking for a problem to solve. And if you pick the area you're passionate about, then you're improving your odds slightly, but you still don't know what your product is. You might think you do, but you don't know. You don't actually know who your customers are. They might be completely different to the ones you expected. And as much as we all like to think we know how to make money, we don't until it starts coming in the door. The only way you find those things out is asking a bucket load of questions. I love the lean startup approach. I think that's really clever. It's kind of applying a scientific mentality to building a business. And the science of it all comes down to hypotheses, which in proper kind of science terms is, I think X will happen if I do Y, or better saying, will X happen if I do Y? You're asking a question, then you're either proving yourself yes or no, and then we use that to make the next decision. The other one, so this is more about a product thing. I think that's kind of a cool way to think about it as well. Product list of questions. Yeah, and I guess in terms of those questions, they're probably what element of the customer's problem does this solve? Why do I need to have this feature is what you should be getting to with each of those. So that was questions. Next up is the most important word of all, which is customers. It's the question, like if anyone ever pitches me an idea or wants to know anything, it's the first question I ever asked. It was the first question I was asked by some pretty switched on entrepreneurs, but who's your customer? It's really easy to overlook that and to get confused, especially in web stuff. Get confused between users and customers. Everyone does that every day of the week. Even Twitter only, like recently, they had like a company policy where they said, actually, we're going to stop referring to our eyeballs as users. We're going to consciously, internally refer to them as customers. And even then, they're wrong, because their customers aren't paying them. Their customers are someone who pays you money. Their customers are still media people, but I think maybe they probably know what they're doing. So maybe they're just trying to shift everyone's mindset to thinking about like end users. So what I'm trying to do with these little slashes and stuff is just saying it's not about your idea. Everyone does think at the start it's about their idea. Your idea is only, I guess, something to kick you in the pants to get you started, to ultimately, hopefully, get you to find customers. And this is my other kind of bugbear. A lot of people start something and they think that either the definition of success or getting to the next step is going to be getting investment, and that's bullshit. It is, in many ways, the worst thing you can do, in all honesty. The reason I think it sucks is straight away your customer actually becomes the person who's given you money. Like, you need to focus laser-like on all these people whose problem you're trying to solve, because they're the ones who give you money. It's a much less strings attached form of money when it's a customer. When it's your investor, whether it's family or friends or VC fund or whatever, you're still having your conversations with customers, but you then have to turn around and have a conversation with someone else who's written you a check. And whilst the check is great, it comes with strings and it's super distracting. The best, I couldn't find the exact quote, but there's a really good thing the other week saying the best way to get investment is to not need it. And I think if you apply that logic to your business, you're saying, well, hey, I can self-fund with customers. Maybe I get investment when I'm actually needing to scale up big time. And I've had all the conversations I need to with customers, and then it becomes a different game. So I just encourage people to not ever use, and the other thing about I need to get investment to do X is it's a great cop-out. Like, we've all got enough excuses to not do what we're passionate about. Some excuses are valid. I've got a family, or I've got a mortgage is semi-valid. But, well, it is, just sell your house. They're all going down anyway. So, they're okay excuses. I've got a job is an average excuse. You can leave it, it's not as secure as you think it is. But I need to get money to do something is not an excuse. It's not a valid excuse, I should say. It's just another roadblock you're kind of putting up to actually doing something. Next little tappy tap. So this is a story I want to say about Startup Weekend. It's really, really fun running it, and what I consciously tried to do with the last one was I tried to teach myself that everyone who was attending a Startup Weekend was my customer. And I don't see, so it's all not for profit, and we put in thousands of hours or hundreds of hours to put it all together. But just in terms of a mindset thing, I was like, okay, every single one of these people are my customer, and I'm going to do whatever the hell I can. And so that's why I wrote every single support email back to people, and it was personal and all that sort of stuff. I just thought, if I was a customer, what would I want from this person? Because they're still giving the entity $100 for a ticket and a heap of their time. Just when you flip something like that, and you can do it in your everyday life, whether it's at a day job or whatever, if you help out with a sporting club or with anything like that outside of work, just try to test yourself and go, all right, I'm going to think about this group of people as my customer, and you'll be surprised when you bend over really completely backwards for someone, what they'll actually come back and do, and it's really, really gratifying then when you're thinking this about, this is my customer. The feeling you get when you wake up in the morning and you've got 5 emails from ticket sales overnight is the best. Like, you just buzz. And when people come to you at the end and stuff like that and say these nice things, once you've put them up on that pedestal and they say that stuff back, it's really, really, really gratifying. So I'd encourage everyone to think about that, just to coach yourself in the in how should I treat and look after my customer approach. That was them. The last one is metrics. So I want to take a slightly different tack on metrics. Most people think about metrics as web page views or revenues or whatever else. I want to think more about kind of what are you trying to get out of your business here? What's your motivation behind it? Is why I've got that there in the brackets. So the first metric I've already kind of talked about, dollars are not a metric. It's maybe an outcome potentially, but that's a long way down the track. We'll worry about it later. Some more cool tweets. Ned Dwyer is a guy who won Startup Weekend Melbourne for a thing called Tweaky, which is really cool. What I'm trying to get to with those 3 things over there is, and I'm still really shit at this too, by the way, but once upon a time I did want to be like the next Zuckerberg, but not a douche. I wanted to be rich and have billions of dollars and all that, and then I try to kind of flip the metric that I want to being, it's about learning. And it's again why I love Startup Weekend, because you can learn over 2 days, even if it's only one lesson. The reality is once you've learned something and applied it, you can then apply it for the next 30 or 40 or 50 years of your life, and we're all pretty young. And that's really, really valuable. It's pretty easy to get a payback on something when it's one kernel of knowledge that you can apply potentially 1,000 times over. If you've got an entrepreneurial kind of bug, I think even if you did get that tomorrow, you're probably still going to want to do something. You're not just going to go live on an island and retire. So to stay stimulated for the next 30, 40, 50 years, it's all about that learning stuff. Michelangelo is probably a cool guy for someone like that, even though maybe, he'd probably say that, who knows. But if, like, we can all learn a bucket load more. Once you flip your metric to saying, like, have I got enough dollars in the bank to going, did I learn enough like to get value for my time or whatever, then life changes a fair bit. It's also kind of the way I could get over building a business that wasn't successful. Like I spent 2 years of my life, that was the biggest cost. I'd spent more than $100,000, that's a reasonably big cost. But do I think I can get a return on those things over the course of my life? Absolutely. Like even if you ascribe, say 100 grand a year, whatever the number is, doesn't really matter, to the 2 years sacrificed, all I have to do then is get a return on 350 grand over the next 50 years of my life, assuming I live that long. That's actually kind of easy to do when you've got all these different lessons, and once you start thinking about it like that, it's a lot easier to not necessarily let go of the past, but realise all is not lost. Like I didn't just tear down the house then. The next little guy is another different, this is not put up there for warm and fuzzy bullshit feelings. This is another metric I think is crucial for everyone to think about. Going back to entrepreneurship being a really lonely path, mental health issues is one of my bugbears or like passion topics as well. It's got a much higher incidence in people who do startups than not, in part because type A people are more likely to take the risks to do startups and also more likely to have depression and stuff. But unless you can be happy with what you're doing, what's the point? Really easy to say and talk about Bhutan with gross happiness indexes and all that sort of stuff. But find what you're passionate about and you're going to be a bucket load happier. Enjoy doing it, but constantly check in with yourself. Ask yourself the question as well, constantly, and not just that, but ask your peers, like ask everyone else in this room, like how they're going, because you get beaten down, you get said no to a lot, and it's soul destroying. You put in massive hours and you take huge sacrifices, but unless you can be happy and unless you can be mentally healthy, you're only going to kind of tank your company eventually. Like it's really a confrontational topic, it's not easy to talk about, but if we can all kind of support each other, that's why I started the Hive in the first place, which was a bit of my tipping point, was if we can all kind of support each other in that endeavour more, then we make a bigger, happier, stronger community that does more good stuff. So yeah, check in with yourself constantly on that metric, but do check in with your peers too, is all I can say. This is the last thing I want to talk about too. Like we've got focus, we've got questions, we've got customers, we've got metrics, but none of that matters unless you do. And it's great that we can have meetups in mornings, even though it's too early. It's great that we've all got these tools at our disposal to do stuff, but what are you actually doing? Bernadette Giwa is someone I've come across, just a Perth lady who's being highly recommended by Seth Godin, who's one of the kind of the foremost thinkers in the world. She's writing really, really good material at the moment. This was a blog just this week about data, but for me it's kind of exactly the same as trying to do a startup, or it's especially kind of lean startup approach. Like you've got hypotheses which you're trying to prove or disprove, and then you're feeding that back into the machine to work out what comes next, so you can hopefully keep asking right questions, which means getting answers that then help you take the next step down, which is obviously the acting. But like this is where I'm probably going to go to questions, because I want to find out what everyone here is doing, if that's okay. Is this making sense?